Hey, people of Redemption, we hope that you and your family are enjoying your day home together as we worship with one another virtually today. I hope that you had a very special Christmas and that you have a great new year ahead. Today is a special day for us where we get to worship together virtually and celebrate certainly the reason for the season. So we hope that you and your family are able to settle down and worship with us for a little while this morning. The first Noel, the angel did say, was to certain poor shepherds in fields as they lay, in fields where they lay keeping their sheep on a cold winter's night that was so deep. Noel, 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 and born is the King of Israel. Looked up and saw a star shining in the east, beyond them far, and to the earth it gave a great light, and so it continued both day and night. Noel, 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 and born is the King of Israel. Noel, 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 and born is the King of Israel. The King is born, the King is born, the King is born. Noel, 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 and born is the King of Israel. Noel, 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 and born is the King of Israel.
Hey, thanks so much, Matt and Cass, for kicking off the service with that. And thank you for being here today. If we haven't had the chance to meet yet, my name is Austin. I'm one of the pastors on staff here at Redemption.
And my name is Cam, and I serve as the youth director here at Redemption as well. Next, we're going to have one of our lead volunteers named Doug come and read a children's book to all your kiddos. So go ahead and bring all the kiddos together here now. Doug is going to read a book called Mary's Treasure Box. And now I'm going to hand it over to Doug for that.
Hi there, friends. Welcome back to Storytime with Grandpa Oliver. Today, I have a very special story for you. It's called Mary's Treasure Box, and it was written by Carolyn Walls Cramlick. It's all about a woman named Mary who kept a treasure chest filled with very precious memories and keepsakes. Can you guess what kind of treasures might be inside? This story is extra special because it reminds us about the things that are most important during Christmas time. Things like love, family, and our faith in Jesus. So grab a cozy spot and let's open up Mary's Treasure Box together. The sunset skies over Nazareth painted a pastel picture on the horizon. The air was cool, and the villagers were making their way home. "Mame, I put the sheep in their pen. Is there anything else I can do for you?" Mame, which is what Sarah called her grandmother Mary, lived alone. "Yes," she said. "Come, sit here next to me by the fire." Sarah hurried over to sit next to her grandmother. "I like spending the night with you, Mame," Sarah confided. "I love having you here," replied Mame Mary. "After supper, I'll tell you a story." Later, Sarah helped her grandmother clear away the supper dishes. Then once again, they sat by the fire. "Mame," began Sarah, the crackling of the fire the only other sound that broke the stillness of the night. "Tell me again the story of your trip to Bethlehem? Ha ha, you love to hear about Jesus' birth, don't you? Well, how about if we open the treasure box?" exclaimed Sarah. "Yes, let's see what we can learn from the treasure box tonight," replied Mame Mary. Sarah ran to the corner of the room where an old wooden box sat. She pushed the box to the center of the floor. It was not heavy, but Sarah did not want to drop it or spill its special contents. Mame Mary knelt next to Sarah and lovingly ran her fingers over the silky, smooth box. "Jesus made this box when he was about your age. He was a wonderful carpenter, just like Joseph, your grandfather. Jesus worked hard to create a masterpiece from every piece of wood he touched." Mame Mary turned to Sarah. "You can open it this time. Someday, the treasure box will be yours." The young girl smiled proudly. Jesus' brother James was her father, and Sarah had always felt especially close to her grandmother. Sarah carefully lifted the wooden lid from the box. A sweet aroma filled the air. Ever so gently, Sarah removed a small bundle rolled up in a yellowing cloth. She placed the bundle on the floor and carefully unrolled the material. "Tell me about this, Mame." "It has been more than 40 years now," said Mame Mary, "but it seems like yesterday. Every time I look in my treasure box, I learn something new." Sarah picked up a little bit of straw and gave it to Mame Mary, who rolled the straw between her fingers. "This is some straw from the manger bed," recited Sarah. She knew every item by heart. "What can we learn from this, Mame?" "We learn humility. When Joseph and I arrived in Bethlehem that night, we were cold and tired. I knew that it was almost time for Jesus to be born, but we could not find a place to stay for the night. We ended up in a simple stable amid the animals. Jesus was born that night. Joseph piled mounds of this straw in the feed trough and made a bed for baby Jesus." Sarah touched some gray wool that had been formed into a small, cushy ball. "And what about this wool?" "Oh," Mame Mary's eyes twinkled. "Shepherds from the hillside came to visit that night, and they gave us a bag of soft wool. Their gift teaches us kindness. Those shepherds had no riches or jewels. They gave generously of what they had. The stable was much more comfortable after that." Mame Mary laughed as she remembered that night long ago. "And this?" Sarah held a wooden flute to her lips. Sweet notes filled the room. "This," mused Mame Mary, "belonged to one of the shepherds. When he played softly on this flute that night, Jesus looked up at him and cooed. From the music of the flute, we learned joy. That was the most joyous night of my life." Mame Mary picked up the once rough cloth, now softened by age, and held it to her cheek. "The first time I held baby Jesus, I wrapped him up nice and warm in this swaddling cloth," she said, turning to Sarah. "It teaches us love. Love of mother and child, of Father and Son, of God and man. Meme Mary spread out the cloth, and Sarah placed the straw, wool, and flute upon it. Gently, Sarah rolled them up together again. Then she peered into the treasure box. "Here are the gifts of the Magi." "Yes," said Meme Mary, "the wise men from the east. I'll never forget their finery. The most beautiful I've ever seen. They came to visit Jesus months later, for they sought the greatest king of all." Sarah picked up a small gold bracelet, too small to fit her own slender arm, but it was the right size to fit the small arm of an infant boy. "Pure gold," she said, "fit for a king." "From this gold, we learn of purity," said Meme Mary. "Jesus was God's only son, and his purity was evident in all he did and thought." Sarah lifted the lid of the small wooden box and whiffed the sweet fragrance. "Frankincense. What do we learn from this?" she asked Meme Mary. "Frankincense is a symbol of prayer and worship and devotion," said Meme Mary. "Jesus worshipped his heavenly Father in spirit and in truth. I have learned so much from him. My devotion to God has grown since Jesus came into my life." The treasure box was almost empty. Sarah lifted one final object from the corner of the box. "Isn't this myrrh?" asked Sarah. "Yes, the last gift of the Magi. Myrrh." "I thought that myrrh is sometimes used to anoint the dead," Sarah said. "What a strange gift to give a baby." "Not so strange a gift for one who would die for his people," Meme Mary explained. "Meme, why is there so much myrrh but only a little gold and frankincense?" "What you see is all that is left, my dear Sarah. Remember what I told you about how Joseph and I had to take Jesus and flee to Egypt? Yes, King Herod wanted to kill Jesus. We used most of the gold to survive when we were in Egypt. This little bracelet is the only thing left." "And the frankincense?" questioned Sarah. "We used the frankincense in our worship on holy days. But I never had a chance to use this myrrh," mused Meme Mary. Sarah knew what her grandmother meant. Many times she had heard the story of how the women had gone to the tomb to anoint Jesus' body, but he was not there. Quietly, Sarah asked, "What can we learn from myrrh?" Smiling, Meme Mary raised her hands to heaven and proclaimed, "Hope for eternal life." Sarah hugged her grandmother. As their cheeks met, Sarah asked, "Does the treasure box make you miss him, Meme?" Meme Mary smiled. "Oh, no, dear. The treasure box brings Jesus closer. I know why he came to earth and why he had to die. He lives here still forever," said Meme Mary, pointing to her heart. "It is time for bed now," said Meme Mary, hugging Sarah close. As they rolled out her bed, Sarah asked, "Will you sing me a song first? I love it when you sing about Bethlehem." As Sarah closed her eyes, Meme Mary softly sang, "In Bethlehem, a child was born, in Bethlehem one night. To earth he came, Rose of Sharon, King of heaven, Son of light." And Mary sang and the angels smiled, for Jesus was his name. Joseph prayed and the shepherds bowed, for the world was not the same. In Bethlehem, a child was born, in Bethlehem the start. But Jesus lives, Rose of Sharon, in the Bethlehem of my heart. In the still darkness of the Nazareth night, Meme Mary leaned over, kissed Sarah, and covered her with a woolen shawl. Then Mary knelt to fill her treasure box again. As she placed the lid on the box, she smiled, for Mary treasured all these things and pondered them in her heart. You know, one of the things I love about this story is the reminder of the questions that we can ask our mom, dads, or maybe our grandparents about what happened when they were little. Or maybe you want to ask your mom and dad what happened or what memories they have of when you were real little. I think that might be a good way to think about this story and think about the love that you have for your family and for Jesus.
Thank you, Doug, so much for reading that story. Man, this is my favorite to hear someone read a children's book, honestly.
He's excellent.
He is very excellent. So again, thank you, Doug, and I hope the kiddos really enjoyed that.
Hey, next we're going to have a song from John and Madi, and then immediately after that, Pastor Brannen's going to give a message based on the new year. So stick around for that.
Come thou long expected Jesus, born to set thy people free from our fears and sins. Release us, let us find our rest in thee. Israel's strength and consolation, hope of all the earth, thou art dear desire of every nation, joy of every longing heart. Born thy people to deliver, born a child and yet a king, born to reign in us forever. Now thy gracious kingdom bring, by thine own eternal Spirit, ruling all our hearts alone. By thine all-sufficient merit, raise us to thy glorious throne. Your name is the highest, your name is the greatest, your name stands above them all thrones and dominions, all powers and positions, your name stands above them all. Your name is the highest, your name is the greatest, your name stands above them all thrones and dominions, all powers and positions, your name stands above them all, and the angels cry, holy, all creation cries, holy, you are lifted high, holy, holy forever. Hear your people sing, holy, to the King of Kings. Holy, you will always be. Holy, holy forever. You
Well, Redemption, we have made it to the end of 2024, and what an incredible year it's been. I think towards the end of every single year, as we're closing one chapter, it's always really helpful to look back. In order for us to look forward properly, we look back and we're reminded about how God moved and what we learned and how we progressed in life and matured. One of the activities that my family and I do is we kind of gather around at the beginning of every year and we set goals. And then at the end of the year, we revisit those goals. And we see which ones did we accomplish, which ones did we not accomplish. And there's always some that we completely fail on. Then there's some that we just knock out of the park. We did them, we're excited. But one of my favorite activities that we do as we're recapping the year and looking at our goals is we all sit down on the couch and we stream pictures from our phone to the TV. And so we get to see all of last year through pictures. And I love doing that because we get to see all the trips that we took, the great times that we had, the highlights, the lowlights, just a really sweet time. Now, as we close a chapter as a church, I think it's really helpful for us to just remind ourselves of why in the world do we exist? Why is Redemption Church right here in Lakeland, Florida? Well, we've been going through the Gospel of Matthew for a little over 2 years now, and here's what I love about the middle of this book. The middle of this book has two stories, and these two stories, I think, help us remind ourselves as we're closing this chapter and looking ahead. It reminds us of why we exist. It reminds us of our vision and our values. So I want to read these two stories to you. We're going to unpack them, and then we're going to remind ourselves. Matthew 14, 34 through 36 says this. When they had crossed over, they came to a land at Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized him, they sent all around to the region and brought him all who were sick and implored him that they might only touch the fringe of his garment. And as many as touched it were made well. Just a chapter later, we have a very similar story. Matthew chapter 15, verse 29. Jesus went on from there and walked beside the Sea of Galilee. And he went up on the mountain and sat down there. And great crowds came to him, bringing with them the lame, the blind, the crippled, the mute, and many others. And they put them at his feet, and he healed them. So that the crowd wondered. And when they saw the mute speaking, the crippled healthy, the lame walking, and the blind seeing, they glorified the God of Israel. Two great stories tucked right into the middle of the Gospel of Matthew. Now, the first story begins with Jesus going to a very Jewish area. And he goes to this Jewish area, and the men of that place recognize him. Now, we're not told, have they seen Jesus before? Have they seen Jesus do all of these miracles? We're not certain. Have they just simply heard about Jesus, and now they recognize this is the one that they've heard about? We're not really certain, but we know this. There was recognition that this was the one. This is the one that they've been waiting on. And so they quickly begin to spread word to all the region. It literally says all of the region knew that Jesus was there because these men spread the word. And then immediately people began to come to him. And the crowds were so great that it says that some just wanted to touch the fringe of his garment. Literally, they just wanted to touch the edge of his clothes. Now, this reminds us a lot of Matthew chapter 9, where there was great crowds around Jesus, and this is kind of the height of his popularity. And there's one woman that's had this medical issue for many, many years, and she's able to get through the crowds and just simply touch his garment. The crowds were great. She just wanted to touch his garment. It reminds us of that story right here in Matthew 14. The crowds were great. Many people were around, and they just want to touch his clothing. Now, as people are around, as they're touching his garment, they're being made well. Literally, if you look at the Greek here, it means to be made whole. So those that could not walk could walk. Those that were broken and struggling were being put back together. Those that were sick were healthy because they had encountered Jesus. And I wonder if it gave all the men who spread this word that Jesus is here just a great sense of satisfaction. that they knew that this was the one, and they invited all these people to come. And when they invited these people to come and they came, Jesus did what he was going to do. He healed them. And then we have the second story. Now, the second story doesn't really happen in a Jewish area per se. It's along the Sea of Galilee. But from every indication, these are Gentiles that are gathering around Jesus. There's, again, just word spreads that Jesus is around. And he goes up to the mountain and he sits down. And the people of this area were literally bringing up with them onto the mountain all kinds of people. People that were lame, people that were mute, people that couldn't see. Bringing all kinds of people up to this mountain to see Jesus and placed these people at his feet. And then he was healing them. And after he was healing them, an entire worship service broke out. It says that they began to glorify the God of Israel. See, that's the indication that this was likely Gentiles. I love these two stories because, again, they remind us so much about why we exist. Why does the church in general exist? Well, first, I want to give you a couple truths, and then we're going to wrap this up. First is, we cannot give what we do not have. We cannot give what we do not have. If we don't personally know Jesus and have intimate knowledge of him, we cannot pass that along. And what, again, I love about these two stories is there are people that recognize who Jesus is and invite others in. What they have, they want to share. The men of that area saw that Jesus was there. They recognized him, and they had to spread word to the entire region. The people that knew that Jesus was on the mountainside, these Gentiles who knew that Jesus was up there, they're willing to bear the burden of bringing others up there. They knew who Jesus was, at least in part, and they brought others there. So we must know him first before we can ever share him. What we give is what we have. Let me say it another way. The question of all questions is, who is Jesus? Who is Jesus to you? Is he just an abstract theological concept? Is it just a person we talk about on Sundays? Or is there a personal and intimate knowledge you have of Christ? The Bible talks about two different kinds of knowing. The first is a really knowing about something. You have intellectual assent to something. So maybe you've learned about it and you understand it at some level, but it doesn't really affect your life. That's one kind of knowledge. For example, I've never been to space, so I don't know what it's like to not be surrounded by gravity. Now, I have intellectual assent. I understand that outside of planet Earth, there's no gravity. But I've never been there, I've never experienced it, and it doesn't affect my life right here. So I know about gravity or anti-gravity. I know about it, but it really doesn't affect my life in a whole lot of ways and how I live. You can know about Jesus, but if there's no fruit in your life, if he hasn't transformed your life, then maybe you just have intellectual assent about Jesus. Now, there's another kind of knowing, and this is a deeply personal and intimate kind of knowing. This is a kind of knowing that it has transformed your life. Like, I know my wife. I don't just know about my wife. No, we've been together for over 20 years. I know my wife. And that's transformed my life, right? I asked her to marry me. We've had children together. We live life together. We go on trips together. We plan life together. It has transformed me by knowing her. Not just about her, but actually knowing her. And so when I ask the question, who is Jesus to you? Do you just know about Christ, or do you actually know Christ? And if you know him, it will be evidenced by your life has been radically changed. Clearly, when there's recognition of who Jesus is in these stories, it transformed their life. They were willing to do whatever it takes to spread the word about Jesus or bring others to Jesus and lay them at his feet. So listen, we cannot give what we do not have. Now, another important truth we see here is we do give what we do have. Again, if you've met and encountered Christ, you know this. He is worth sharing. There are a few places that I love to eat in this world. There is a taco place all the way out in Austin, Texas that I love. I love it, I love it, I love it. And I share about that place with others often because I've experienced so much joy from these tacos that I have to share this joy with other people. And so I talk about it, right? And so if we know Christ, what we do have, what we have been given, of course, we want to share with everybody. As they recognized Jesus, there was a clear burden in their heart that they had to share this knowledge with other people. Here we find ourselves in Lakeland, Florida. And this past summer, the leadership of Redemption goes, hey, we want to better understand the spiritual condition of our city. Like, where is our city at spiritually? And what we found in our research is about 21% of people have a meaningful connection to the local church. Only 21%. That means 79% of the people that we live around, work with, do life with, they have no meaningful connection to the local church. Now, please hear me out. Being a part of a church does not save us. Having a strong connection to a church doesn't give us acceptance and love from God. No, that's free. That's the gift of the gospel. However, if you read the New Testament, we don't have any pictures of a faith that's alive and active without a connection to a local church. So I say all that to say this. 79% of the people in our area have no meaningful connection to the local church. And thus, we can assume both biblically and statistically, if you look at the data, that they likely don't have a meaningful faith in Christ. 79%. Within a 20-minute drive of our church, of our location. And this should burden our heart because what we do have, we must share. And so we need to be like the men who spread word throughout the entire region. We need to be like these people that were willing to carry others, those that were struggling and hurting, up and lay them at the feet of Jesus. We are willing to do whatever it takes to reach every man, woman, and child. See, we first have to know Jesus, and then the moment we know Jesus, we want to make him known. And so our vision is to reach every man, every woman, and every child. And maybe just a word to the men, just really quick, because it explicitly says the men of the area recognize Jesus. I think one of the earmarks of a mature believer, especially a mature man, is that they take ownership and responsibility for others. They're willing to step in the gap and go, okay, I need to make sure that I share this with others. I need to make sure that I carry these people on my shoulders to Jesus. Now, I can't save them, but I take ownership and responsibility to do everything in my power to help them know Christ. That is an earmark of a mature believer and especially a mature man. So listen, as we close the chapter of 2024 and we look back and God has done so many incredible things in our church. I love what God's doing. I love our church. There's no other place I would rather be or do life with than people of Redemption right here. As we look back, we have to remember, why do we exist? Well, we exist to reach every man, every woman, and every child in Greater Lakeland with the gospel. We have been entrusted with the good news that Jesus saves sinners through his life, death, and resurrection. This is a life-changing story that we've been entrusted with, we've been given, and so we must share it with everyone. And so as we look forward to 2025, that's not changing. That's why we're here. We want to see more people come to faith, more people declare their faith in him through the act of baptism, more disciples made. Every man, every woman, and every child. Guys, I am so excited about 2025. There are incredible things on the horizon. I sense that God is doing a great work in and through us, and I can't wait to see what he does. Thank you so much for an incredible 2024, and here's Austin and Cam.
Hey, thank you so much, Pastor Brannen, for that message. Friends, in just a moment, we're going to share a video with some highlights from 2024 that we felt you might want to see again.
And after that, we're going to have one more song led by Cass and Madi to close out the service.
That's right. Hey, we've loved having you join us here today. We would love to have you join us in person next week at Redemption Church, 145 East Edgewood Drive at 9:30 or 11 a.m. We hope to see you there.
Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Sing, choirs of angels, sing in exaltation. Sing, all ye citizens of heaven above. Glory to God, glory in the highest, glory in the highest, glory in the lowest, glory wherever I go. Glory in the highest, glory in the lowest, glory wherever I go. Child, for us sinners, born in the manger, we would embrace thee with love and all. Who would not love thee, loving us so dearly? Oh, come.